So a quick reminder of your setup, you want to make sure that you've written your name and hour on your piece of paper that you're going to be printing on. You want to make sure that you have newspaper out on your table, that you have your printing plate, you have your styrofoam with your ink color and a brayer that you plan to use to roll out the ink as well. So when I'm ready to start my final, I'm going to move my plate or my final paper so it's close. I'm going to work with it vertical so you can see my prints a little bit better. And I'm going to try and keep my paper on one half of my newspaper and keep my printing plate on the other half and my styrofoam on the other half. So while I'm inking, I'm trying to keep my ink from getting everywhere. So then I'm going to take and I'm inking my printing plate. I know you can't see it right now, but I'm trying to get a nice good coating on my printing plate. Then I'm going to take and very carefully, I'm trying to handle it only by the edges so I don't end up with a ton of ink on my fingers. Then I'm going to take and very carefully set it in the corner. Now I want you to try and get 24 prints. The reason I'm asking you to do some extra is because not every print turns out the way that you want it to, right? So we want to make sure that we're getting nice solid prints, that we're not having our color show through. So I'm going to show you what a non-solid print would look like. Okay, so right here, I didn't do a good job of rolling on my ink, so there's some areas that don't have any ink, so I won't get a good print. So not having enough ink is one of the issues that you might run into. And then also not using enough pressure. So you'll notice here we've got some areas where the blue's showing through where I want it to be white. And that's because I didn't use pressure and I also didn't use enough ink. So like right now, if we look at my plate, it doesn't have much on it. If I were to press that down, that's not enough ink. So, and remember, as you're rolling, you might roll it from multiple directions. So I usually roll forward and then I'll also roll to the side because sometimes you can get areas that you would miss otherwise. Okay, so I've got some here. Now I'm gonna flip it because I wanna try and fit as many as possible. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of put it in between those two. And here, I'm just gonna press in these areas. And notice I didn't do any pressing right here, okay? So I lift it up and notice how these are more solid. The area that I didn't do any pressure, it's got some white spots in it. So I'm gonna show you again how to do the print correctly. So I, roll it out, get a nice layer, nice even layer. And then again, remember we're gonna kind of flip this around, place it in there. Good pressure throughout. Nice even layer of ink. Peel up, nice solid print. So keep in mind as you're going, you wanna get 24 prints. Now a tip, if you have a design where you've carved all the way to the edge of your triangle, you might take a pencil as you're printmaking and trace around the edges because remember we have to cut out these designs. So if you've carved out an entire side and you don't know where that corner is to cut it out, it can be helpful to trace around them with a pencil. Now what do you do when you run out of ink? So when you run out of ink on your tray, you pour a little bit more, you spread it out, and then you go back to printing. Try and leave a little bit of space between your prints. Now this one, I felt it move, okay? So when it moves like this, that's a sign that you have too much ink. So you can see how the ink is pooling in my design there. That's a sign that I have too much ink. Now sometimes that happens, especially if you have a design that has really tiny carved lines, you'll get to where the ink fills in there and you don't see your line. When that happens, you have to wash your printing plate. So I'm gonna load this up with way too much ink. Okay, so when you look at this, can you see the grooves? No, that's telling me I'm using way too much ink on my brayer. So when that happens, I would wash my plate and then I can also take and use a sharpened pencil and kind of run over those lines and just get rid of the ink that's in those areas. So that's something you can do to help with that. And then print it. Okay, so it didn't do too bad, but you can see the ink's definitely filling in some of those grooves. Another thing you can do if you have way too much ink, you might take your brayer and run it once on the newspaper like this to get some of that extra ink off, and then roll your printing plate That can help get rid of some of that extra ink. That's why I say only pour out a quarter size amount. If you pour out too much, it causes issues when you print. Now, some students in the past have kind of tried to do some touch-up. They'll take a little bit of ink and just kind of smear it in there. If you can do that without it being too distracting, you can try that, but you really should be getting it. See, I can't do that because there's still a whole edge there that I didn't get pressure to. So sometimes you can do some little touch-ups, but in that case, I didn't get all my ink where it needed to be. That one's pretty good, okay? Except for I'm overlapping, but that's fine. Okay, and then I can turn my paper again and start to do some more. So I've already got 10 in there, so I can continue on with the rest.